Have you ever wondered how we can feed growing populations while keeping our soils healthy and productive? Today's story centers on lentils, those tiny, protein-packed seeds that are staple food for millions and a not-so-glamorous, but revolutionary fertilizer, vermicompost. Now, vermicompost is basically compost made by earthworms, packed with nutrients and beneficial microbes. Think of it as a natural plant multivitamin compared to the quick energy jolt of mineral fertilizers like urea or superphosphate. But here's the twist. Despite its eco-friendly allure, organic fertilization still plays second fiddle in most fields. Why is that? Let's dig into the science and the real-world impact of shifting from chemicals to earthworm magic. Let me tell you a story from the fields of Syria. At Garash Farm, researchers compared traditional mineral fertilizers to vermicompost on 6 different Syrian lentil varieties. Their goal? To see if going organic could actually boost productivity while embracing sustainability. Now you might be thinking, organic methods aren't those for backyard gardeners, not big crops? Well, as we'll see, the answer might surprise you. The technical terms you'll hear today are herbicide resistance, which means a plant can survive chemicals meant to kill weed sand, harvest index, which is the ratio of useful crop yield to total plant biomass. Don't worry, I'll keep things simple and actionable as we see how these ideas shape the lentil revolution. So, can a bucket of worm castings really outshine synthetic granules? And what does that mean for the future of food security in regions like Syria, where every harvest counts? Buckle up as we begin the journey from soil to seed. All right, let's break down the experiment and the big findings. Ready? Picture this. 48 plots, 6 lentil varieties Idlib 1 through 5, plus Ebla 1 and 2 fertilizer types, all laid out in a randomised complete block design, or RCBD for short. RCBD is a technical term for a fair test that minimizes hidden field differences, like a well-shuffled deck of cards. Each plot got either the usual mineral fertilizer mix or a hefty helping of vermicompost, dosed at about 20.6 cubic meters per hectare. Now, why compare these two? Mineral fertilizers, like urea and superphosphate, deliver a rapid spike in plant nutrients, but they often leave soils depleted and ecosystems stressed. Vermicompost, loaded with organic matter and slow-release nutrients, claims to build healthier soil over time. But does it deliver in terms of yield? Researchers measured everything: plant height, number of pods, seed count, seed weight, and the all-important seed yield per plant. And here's where it gets interesting. Vermicompost didn't just match mineral fertilizer, it outperformed it in key growth areas. For instance, plants fertilized with vermicompost were taller 54.2 centimeters on average versus 43.7 centimeters with mineral fertilizer. That's a 25% jump! The number of pods per plant and seeds per plant skyrocketed under vermicompost. 87 pods and 78 seeds compared to 49 and 48 with mineral fertilizer, respectively. Now, you might ask, are these just statistical blips, or do they mean real progress for farmers? The answer is clear. These are statistically significant gains, meaning they're very unlikely to be due to chance. So, if you're a farmer in Syria or anywhere with fragile soils and rising input costs, vermicompost isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a game-changer. But what makes certain lentil varieties respond better? And how do we choose the right ones for even greater yields? Let's dive into the genetics. Here's where plant breeding and genetics step in. Have you ever heard of heritability? In simple terms, heritability measures how much of a trait-like pod number is controlled by genetics versus environment. High heritability means a trait is mostly genetic, so you can reliably select for it in breeding programs. In this Syrian study, both the number of pods per plant and number of seeds per plant showed sky-high heritability over 94%. That's like saying if you pick a plant with lots of pods, its offspring will almost certainly inherit that trait. The technical term, genetic advance, describes how much improvement you can expect after selection. Here, genetic advance was also very high, suggesting rapid progress is possible by breeding for these traits. Now, you might be thinking, is this just about bigger numbers? Or do these traits actually translate to more food on the table? Absolutely, they're tightly correlated with higher seed yield per plant, with correlation coefficients of 0.99 and 0.98. Imagine two race cars. If you boost the engine, number of pods, the speed, yield, goes up almost automatically. Another technical tool used is principal component analysis, or PCA. Think of PCA as a sorting hat that groups traits explaining most of the differences among lentil varieties. Here, the first principal component captured over 85% of the variation, and it included number of pods, seeds, seed yield, and harvest indexo. These are the traits to watch if you want to breed winners. So, by focusing on these genetically robust traits, breeders and farmers can make smarter choices faster. But does this mean vermicompost plus the right variety is a silver bullet? Let's see what the data says about the best performers and practical takeaways. Let's talk results. The Idlib 2 variety, when paired with vermicompost, delivered the highest seed yield over 5 grams per plant, which translates to roughly 221 kilograms per hectare. That's a remarkable leap compared to the control. The harvest index, which is the ratio of grain to total plant weight, also peaked at 39% for this combo. In plain English, more of the plant's energy went into making edible seeds, not just stems and leaves. Why does vermicompost make such a difference? It's not just about nutrients. It contains plant growth regulators like auxins and gibberellins. Think of them as natural plant hormones that help with nutrient uptake and seed development. This means healthier, more productive plants, even under the tough conditions of Syrian soils and low rainfall. Now, skeptics might ask, can this approach scale up? Is it affordable? The recommendation is clear. After soil testing, farmers in Syria and similar regions should expand vermicompost use, especially with high-performing varieties like Idlib 2. And here's a practical tip: focus on selecting plants with more pods and seeds per plant as your main breeding criteria, since these traits are both highly heritable and closely tied to yield. Imagine a future where farmers rely less on costly imports of mineral fertilizers and more on locally produced organic amendments. It's not only about yield, it's about resilience, sustainability, and food sovereignty. And for those worried about weeds and pests, vermicompost has been shown to help with both, reducing the need for chemical herbicides and pesticides. So, to wrap up, the science is in vermicompost, paired with the right genetics, can revolutionize lentil production. The next time you enjoy a bowl of lentil soup, remember there's a world of research, earthworms, and smart selection behind every spoonful. Stay curious, and let's keep growing. Have you ever wondered how we can feed growing populations?